Everybody's after the realtor because our fees are right there, right? Our fees are shown. Everybody knows what we get paid. It's, this percent of the sales price. So everybody's after it. And this, all of 2024, man, that was the big talk of the year. Now, all right, you had your chance. Now let's dig into everybody else's and see how they're making the money. And, you got to understand that there are people making money off these transactions that you don't know about. And
how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. My name is Matt. That is Shawn, and welcome to our show. Shawn, in today's episode, we're going to talk about one of the biggest hidden costs in buying a property that I never knew about. I don't want to speak for you, but I don't know if either of us knew about.
No.
And this could cost home buyers hundreds of dollars, maybe even like $1,000, which is like startling. Because when you extrapolate that across the board, that's a lot of money out of home buyers' pockets. But first, Shawn, Wednesday, January 15th here in Northern Virginia, the snow is finally getting off the ground, which is weird because usually it'll snow and then like the next day it'll be like 50 or 60 degrees and it'll just turn into this sloppy mess. But I'm curious, are you a snow blower, snow shoveler, or do you have like a leaf? What is your weapon of choice for clearing your sidewalks?
yeah, if there's a lot of snow, I like the snow blower. Now,
So
I
have a snow blower.
I have this mammoth snow blower that I bought during Snowmageddon a few years ago. Back then, we rarely get snow here, and then every couple of years we'll get slammed with a big storm, and that big storm will stay. So I bought this huge snow blower, but then it just sat in my garage unused for years, and now I can't get it started. So I have this big, it's big. It was probably like $850 because it was the last one during Snowmageddon. And I was like, I'm just getting it. I don't care. And that year, I snowblowed all of my neighbors' driveways. It was pretty awesome while drinking beer. It was a good time.
Neighborhood hero. Are your kids old enough to help you with some shoveling?
Yeah. Bodie was out there this year helping me out. Brooke, she'd rather stay inside. But this year, you know what I used was, it was like a shovel snowblower. It was really good. I think it was called Snow Joe or something like that. It was really efficient for the amount of snow we got, like 6-8 inches. It did a good job. It's a battery-powered thing, and it's not too big to take up too much space. So look up Snow Joe.
Shout out Snow Joe. So I'm curious, again, Shawn, because we've had snow. There is snow. I don't think there's going to be... we could still get some snow, but if you're a seller out there and you're thinking about selling your house and maybe you got pictures like with the snow and you're about to go on the market, are you a fan of like retaking those photos without the snow? Where do you stand on snow photos?
Yeah, it doesn't happen all that often for me, but I would probably opt to go and get new pictures once the snow is gone, if it's still on the market, if it's one of those lagging properties.
If you do like a coming soon listing, maybe you get all the exterior shots a couple weeks ago and there could be snow.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's an opportunity to redo the snow. Because I always think if you're seeing houses, like it should be the weather that is. Like if you're seeing a house online, it's got like a Christmas tree in it, right? It's got like some Halloween decorations and it's like March. You're like,
It's
what?
like weird.
What are we doing here?
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of like redoing the snow photos.
Yeah.
And even if it has been sitting on the market, like go back. And I saw this post on Echo Title where, someone didn't shovel their house on the market and they didn't shovel the driveway or the walkway. It's kind of like a dangerous situation. Well, it just goes to show like a lack of maybe concentration for the small details there.
Yeah, no, it's all about the details. And, I typically don't like snow on the ground with pictures of houses. It can be very pretty. So if you have one, great. But if that snow melts, I think the best thing to do is take new pictures. Exterior, it's not that much. It's quick. Get it done. And like you said, I like people to walk into the house like they've seen it online, right? That's why I don't do virtual staging. I want them to feel like they're walking into something that feels good. And so if your driveway's not shoveled, you still have the old pictures of snow and now there's no snow, I think it looks a little weird. So I would definitely go in and take those pictures.
And we're in an area where it's not like Buffalo or Syracuse where there's just like snow on the ground for 8 months out of the year.
Right.
And then for some reason, everyone in Syracuse has like an outdoor pool. It's like, what do you use the pool for like 30 days?
Yeah.
It's a little less common here in Northern Virginia to have snow on the ground. So it makes more sense to redo those photos.
Yeah, but you know what? This year, we still have snow on the ground. It's been a week and a half, and it's still there. So sometimes we go through these cold spells where it just sticks. I looked at the weather, and it's supposed to snow on Saturday. 65% chance.
Okay. We'll see what happens.
See.
All right, Shawn, let's move on to the topic of the day. This comes to us from Business Insider. Home buyers' giant hidden cost. appraisal managers get a cut of almost every sale to the tune of $2.5 billion a year. This one kind of took me aback a little bit, and I had to read the article a couple times just to fully understand what was happening here. And essentially what this is a middleman in the appraisal process. So when you go to buy a house, you usually get a loan from a lender, and then the lender needs to get an appraisal done to make sure that the property is worth the value that you're going to be paying for it. But they're not just going to get someone like in-house or like someone that works for the lending company, because you can obviously see the conflict of interest that could go on there. And so they hire an appraisal management company who is like literally a middleman, and that management company will go out and hire the specific appraisal person for that property. And then that's how that works under the hood there. But as a home buyer, when you see the closing statement, you'll just see, appraisal fee, $600, appraisal fee, $750, appraisal fee, $1,000, whatever it is, depending on the size of the house and the scope. You're not going to see how much of that actually went to the appraiser and how much of it went to that appraisal management fee company, which the amounts could be startling. Shawn, had you ever heard about the appraisal management company, and why aren't more people up in arms about this money grab?
Yeah, I've never heard of it, honestly. I didn't know it existed. I know that there has to be a separation between the lender and the appraiser, because you can see how they can collude to try to get a price. So that's why that's separated. And maybe that middleman agency is the go-between because of that separation. I don't know, but it seems to me like it's unnecessary. And I had no idea that existed. I've been doing this 21 years. And that's the thing, is there's a lot of things that go on in this business, on the lending side, on the appraisal side, on the title side, that you learn as you go. You wouldn't know that these fees are there, or how they're covered, or how they're getting paid. So I think that's, again, we'll go through a couple of these, but no idea that this existed. And what you learn as well is that appraisers, what lenders typically say is, we have the good appraisers, or we have the appraisers that are knowledgeable in this area. Well, how do you get the good appraisers? You pay them more, right? And so sometimes you'll see a fee of like $495 for an appraisal. Sometimes you'll see it at $750. Well, that company, that lender, is paying for the more experienced appraisers that know the area, that have done appraisals in that area for a long time. And those are the people that you want to show a value of your home. You want a true value of that home. If you're paying for that appraisal, you want somebody that's knowledgeable. And, I've definitely had scenarios in the past where, you get this appraiser, maybe they've done appraisals here, but they're from Maryland and they're doing a Virginia, local thing. And I'm like, I don't know if I trust this. And then there's little nuances in areas that you have to know as an appraiser, as an agent. If you're this side of 66, it's going to be less. If it's, you're north to South Arlington, the prices vary so much. So you can't take a comp from South Arlington and go a mile out and say, oh, well, it's North Arlington. It's a different price point. And so the knowledge of that is key. And so if you're paying for a lesser appraiser, they might not know that, and they might screw up the values. But then getting back to the point, no idea that somebody else was taking the money. And why is that? Then we can just cut them out and get straight to the point, and your fees could go down.
So reading from the article, public filings from one of the country's largest AMCs suggest that these companies charge consumers about $12 billion in a recent 5-year span. Additionally, they quote someone in the article who got an appraisal done. It was $1,000, ended up being $375 for the actual appraisal. And then the appraisal management company, whatever manager companies, whatever we're calling the AMC, charged $725. Okay, so the consumer, the home buyer, paid $1,100 for the appraisal, but the appraiser's fee was only $375. So there was over $700 in hidden cost for an extra middleman.
That's amazing. I had no idea that existed. That's crazy. And this is the thing. Everybody's after the realtor because our fees are right there, right? Our fees are shown. Everybody knows what we get paid. It's this percent of the sales price. So everybody's after it. And this all of 2024, man, that was the big talk of the year. Now, all right, you had your chance. Now let's dig into everybody else's and see how they're making the money. And you got to understand that there are people making money off these transactions that you don't know about. And so that's why it's important now that we've been, put out in the open like that. Let's see how everybody else is making their money.
Why not just give every single appraiser a number?
Yeah.
Shawn, you're number 1. I'm number 2. Appraisal, you're number 3 is number 3. And then when someone goes to buy a house, they go on Google, they click Google random number generator, go. And then when it's appraiser number 57, whoever's got 57 does that appraisal.
Yeah.
Right. I just saved you $12 billion over the past 5 years by doing that. This is absurd. I don't understand. I guess I do understand why the realtor is the boogeyman, but I don't understand why the goalposts, keep moving for these other players in the transaction, these other middlemen who clearly don't provide any value. And the reality is it's hidden because the lender sees what the AMC makes and what the appraiser makes, but that information never gets to the home buyer. And if it does, it's buried on like a 40-page appraisal report. So I'm pretty taken aback by this, and I hope that something happens from it, because it's blasphemous that you have to pay a middleman $700 to choose the person that does the actual work.
Agreed, 100%. Aside from this appraisal fee that we didn't know about, first of all, I want to say I'm very supportive of the people in this industry, our lenders, our title companies, everything. Everybody deserves to get paid because they do great service and great work. But have you ever thought about, like, okay, how does that loan officer get paid? That's not disclosed in any of this, right? And it's buried pretty hard. And, for years, I didn't know how they got paid or what they got paid. And, those fees have come down because it's a very competitive space. But, our fee is shown right on that sheet. The loan officer's fee or the lender fee. Yeah, there are some lender fees in there, but we don't know how the actual person that did your loan, that processed it and everything else, gets paid. And it's not a salary. It's based on some of a salary, but they also get a commission based on that. And so that's never disclosed. It's buried in your fees, in your loan. And so that could be 1%. It could be what they call it. I don't even know what they call it, but it's usually less than 1% of the deal. But they're making a good chunk of money that no one really knows about and how that actually works.
Comment down below if you've ever heard about appraisal managers before and what you think about their just ridiculous costs that they're charging. All right, Shawn, let's move on to our next topic. I was scrolling the interwebs and someone asked the question, how much does smoking in a house actually lower its value? Oh. And before I clicked on the comments, which there's, 258 comments, I was struggling to come up with a number because, hey, if you have a smaller property, if you have a bigger property, how much does smoking actually lower its value? Shawn, I'm going to give it to you, and then I'm going to say my answer.
I have to come up with a number?
You have to come up with a number.
Man, I guess it depends on everything, but let's say it's a single-family home in Arlington, and it's a smelly, smoky place. I'm saying it's pretty significant. $50,000 to $75,000 is probably where I am, and it depending on the size, but like I would say $75,000 is what I'm going to give.
I'm talking like lived in, like 30-year smoker, like person who's just kind of sucking away in the living room. The walls are dripping with nicotine. And
if it's dripping with nicotine, then that says that the property value or the property is also just horrendous because it's going to need a complete renovation. But smoking alone, it varies so much. It's so hard to pinpoint a price on it. You could go way more than that. I think to remedy it is going to cost you a pretty significant amount. It's probably not going to cost you that much, but you're never really always going to get rid of it.
I guess, yeah, I'm doing a very poor job of elaborating on this. Okay. You walk into the house and you kind of smell fresh paint, but you definitely smell smoke. Like everywhere you go, like you can't get away from it. It seems like they've tried to hide it, but it's still there. Now, for me, I couldn't come up with a number, Shawn, because the number is infinity. The number is I'm not buying it. Yeah. Okay, the number is how much does it cost to, take this thing down to the studs, to replace the drywall, to, redo all the HVAC vents, to literally do everything. Now you can say, oh, we'll just go out, get an ozone machine, go out and get kills, and, maybe that'll work, but will it? Will it get it all out? I don't know. I don't think it will.
I'll tell you that this is probably my number one of why I wouldn't buy a house. Because even when you get it out, and you can get it out, but psychologically, I'm still always going to think, man, it smells like smoke in here. I have a particularly strong nose, and I can smell these types of things, and I will probably always psychologically smell it. And then what effect does that have to your family, to your kids? And so I think that's probably my number one, where I'd be just like, nah, no, thank you. I'll walk away from it, and I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to deal with it. Now, have I renovated houses with this problem in it? Yes, I have. And I will tell you that when I was selling it, it was spring. We had the windows open. We took all the carpets out of the property. We painted the whole entire place. We did put like one of those ozone smoke things in the property. And when I was showing the property, I was like, you know what? I don't really smell it anymore. I'm feeling pretty good about this. And, you know, the property sold. It went well. We had multiple contracts. It sold above ask. And then I went over there, and one day right before the walkthrough, and this is when summer hit. And summer, we were running the air conditioning. And I walked in there and I'm like, oh man, I can definitely smell that smoke. So, you know, it's one of these things that it's in your vents. You know, it's been in there for a long time, and it doesn't matter if they only smoked in this one room, or they only smoked. It's going into your vents, man, and it's going to stink. And how do you get that out? I mean, replacing everything really is the best way to do it. And I've sold plenty of places with the smoke smell in it. Every time I walk in, I'm like, guys, I don't know if you want this. Some of my clients that purchased one, he was like, I don't care. I'll figure it out. I'll get it done. But what was happening, it was a condo, and the person below him was smoking, and it was coming up through. So he went and, like, you know, secured the property and put all this like preventative stuff so the smoke wouldn't come through. But I'm still not buying it, you know? And I think that yes, it's going to have a significant amount of lower price point, but your buyer pool is basically gone, you know? And that's the big thing, is you want the biggest buyer pool that you possibly can. So smoking in a property is my number one killer.
Yeah, I mean, my first answer is there's no price, because I'm not going to buy it. My second answer is like, all right, you actually want a price? I'd probably say about 30% off, right? 30% discount. Like, it immediately removes 30% of the value. So you're looking at comps, and if it's a $1 million house, it's now a $700,000 house. Like, it can be that significant for properties that have had significant smoke in it.
Yeah, and let me go one other direction. I would say smells for me. Smell is tough to get around, right? And you walk into these places where, you know, they put the little plugins, and those plugins, I'm like, our noses already know, oh, that's a Glade plugin. We know the color of the smell.
What are they hiding?
Yeah, what are they hiding? And it doesn't work, because that odor sometimes, I mean, it can, but you're covering something typically when it's very strong when you go in there. But I used to flip properties, and we used to go look at, you know, dilapidated properties. And one time we walked into this place, and it was the worst smell. Can you guess what it was? Cat pee.
Yeah.
Cat urine was the worst. And it was a cat infested house, and these cats just went, and we considered buying it. And when we got down to it, we're like, well, we have to take out not only the subfloor, but then it had leaked through the subfloor into the beams and everything else. That's how bad this place was. And it was basically a teardown at that point. You know, you just don't want to get into that. So the smells to me are one of the worst things. If it's an environmental smell outside that's, you know, just for a little while, that's fine. But when it's smoke, cat pee, mildew, moldy smells, that is, for me, kind of walk away. The mildew smells are a little easier to take care of.
Have you always had a sensitive nose?
I have.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's been my curse.
You just, curse and a blessing.
Yeah.
So any basement you walk into, you're like immediately on alert. All right, do I smell mildew? Do I smell humidity?
Yeah, I can smell it. And not only that, gas. So I had a new construction that I was doing last year, and we were doing our final walkthrough, and I opened the HVAC closet, and I was like, do you smell that? And she's like, no, I don't smell anything. And I said, I smell a slight hint of gas. It's very slight, but I smelled something. And gas for me, like, I've had experiences in the past where somebody bumped into a stove and it left the gas on all day, and my client comes home and she freaks out. So gas for me is tragic. It's been one of these experiences that has you know, made me a little neurotic. And so I'm always like, I smell gas. And so I called the builder and I said, hey, I don't want to be alarming or anything, but I thought I smelled gas. And he actually sent a plumber over there, and they looked at it, and it was the HVAC. There was a valve inside the HVAC. He said it was a small leak, but it was there. And thankfully we caught it, right? And so I guess it's good to have one of those noses that you can smell a little bit better than most.
Are there any smells in your new house as of like 4 years ago, where you just, other than kids and life, but like weird house improvement project smells?
Right now, I have a paint smell in my
Paint
basement.
smell,
Paint
okay.
because it's being painted.
But is that coming from? Is that coming to the main level? Like, is it seeping all the way up?
Right
or
now,
just,
yeah, but it's just
yeah.
fresh, right?
Okay.
But no, I'd say that my basement does have a basement smell, a slight basement, maybe a moisture smell, slight, but there's no moisture in there.
Now,
but it's built in 1937.
What is
right?
your water mitigation? Do you have a French drain? What do you have a sump pump? What's
I have
your
a sump
situation?
pump. I have a sump pump that is typically dry, and that has been sealed up. I actually have a radon abatement system in the house
The
as well.
sump pump is sealed up. Do you have a battery backup for it?
I don't have a battery. I got to do that. I don't have a battery backup. This is a lesson. Even realtors don't do it. So get the battery backup. I got to do that, but it's sealed because of radon. So when you do a radon abatement system in your house, and you have a radon, you have a sump pump, they seal that sump pump up as well, so that no air leak gets out. You can take it off, but to inspect it and stuff. But you want to seal on that so that the air is pulling from under your foundation and out for the radon.
Let me ask you this: where do you stand on when you're touring a house with a client and you see the sump pump, or you see the radon abatement station, or you see maybe like a mini split in like the top floor of a townhouse or a Cape Cod or something? Are you instantly concerned because there could be water, there could be radon, there could be not great AC in the summer? Or are you on the flip side saying, okay, maybe they've had these problems before and they've done things to solve them?
Yeah, I would rather see them in the house. I think it's a good thing to have a sump pump in there because they're actually proactive about getting any water from the foundation outside the house. So I typically tell my clients, hey, this is a good thing. Now we're going to have an inspection and make sure that there's no more moisture or as much as we can find. But, these houses are built in Arlington in the 30s originally. And in the 20s, I just ratified a contract yesterday, built in 1925. Beautiful house. It's
What part of town?
What's the actual small subdivision? Like, down Wilson Bon Air.
You don't need it.
area.
Oh, that part of town. Got it.
But it was an original house, 1925. And it was originally on a 7-acre lot. And over the years, they sold those out and all the houses have been built around. But anyways.
Did you get to negotiate on that one?
I did. Yeah. Negotiated.
So was it stale on the market then?
It was. Yeah. So
stale?
these are the things. They overpriced it and then it was still overpriced. And we came in low, pretty low, and negotiated a good price. We still got a good amount off, but we were able to get a home inspection, which is tomorrow. We got a radon test, which is tomorrow. We got a termite. We got finance. We got appraisal. So sometimes you go for those overpriced properties, you can get those contingencies. So don't poo-poo the overpriced properties. Just throw in an offer, see what happens.
Now, did your clients say, "Oh, it's been on the market for a long time. What's wrong with it?" Or where was their head wrapped around
No,
this?
they didn't. They loved the property. It's definitely not for everybody. It was a particular style.
Did they love it a couple months ago when it was on the market at a higher price and said, "Hey, let's watch this"? Or once it dropped down into their purview, they started to.
They just started looking,
Okay.
and so it was one of these things where they're past clients of mine, and they were like, "Hey, what do you think of this one?" And they were like, "Is it weird that we're like kind of buying the first one?" And I was like, "Dude, sometimes the first one is the right one. If you have a particular style, and this one was very particular, and I'll show you pictures of it, but it's almost like a Tuscan feel. And when was the last time you saw a Tuscan feel in Arlington?
Was it like a Tuscan 2006 like renovated kitchen kind of feel
well,
where
yeah,
you need to?
I mean, you still have the 2006 touches.
Well,
in
like,
there,
why
but-
did everyone in 2006 want a Tuscan kitchen?
No, it's not the Tuscan kitchen, but it's the little touches, and it's a stone exterior, which is kind of neat. But anyways, going back to having those systems in there, I think I like them. And there's crawl spaces in some of these houses. I have a crawl space. I think that's where some of that smell comes from, because what's a crawl space? It's dirt floors, right? But what I did after I bought the house was put in a vapor barrier and insulated that area. So those are things that you got to think of.
We got to get a dehumidifier in that crawl space.
You come over and
I'm gonna
test
come
it
up.
out.
What did the guy
You've been over
say?
there.
What did the expert say? I'm just a YouTube expert. What did the actual expert say?
Well, the contractor said, I can smell a little moisture down here. And I said, okay, well, let's figure it out and see where it is. It might be coming from the sump pump, but it's not like, I have a strong nose. It's not over intrusive, but I live in the house. So, maybe I'm smell blind. What is it? What do they call it? Something blind? Nose blind.
Nose blind.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes when you put the vapor barrier down and then you also have insulation in the subflooring, then the vapor that is there can only go one place and get sucked up into the insulation,
And that's
which
where you
could
need a fan or a
lead to mold.
humidifier in that spot.
Yes.
That's correct.
So
I
something
might have
think
to look
about.
into a humidifier. That's a good point. I might
Next
have to
time I'm
get a
coming over,
humidifier,
I'll
a dehumidifier
crawl
in that
into.
spot.
I'll change out one suit for another and crawl into
Right.
your crawl space.
Good to have Matt around.
All right. Well, if you made it this far, be sure to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already. That'll just about do it for another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Take care.